Gotta think. What do I like? What do you think, Drunken Taylor? Early in the morning. You ready to go?
Yeah.
Hit it. Woo! Hit it. Boo, 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 doo, boo, boo.
We're good, bro.
We're recording.
Yes.
Just checking, dude.
We're
You never
20
know.
minutes deep, bruh. Oh, I
Sometimes you
know,
don't press
trust me.
that button.
When you were still invisible, I pressed the button.
Hello and welcome back to the Second and Two podcast. I'm your host, TB. Got my co-host, producer extraordinaire. He pressed the button today. Jody. What up, Joe?
What's up? We're back. We took a break last week. Am I tripping? We had a
Yeah, I
little
don't think we
misschedule
did it
something.
purposefully. It just kind of happened. We got busy, things happened, but we're
Yeah.
back this week. Training camp's alive and well. So
Yeah, true. Everything's getting kicked off.
all 32
Hopefully,
teams are in training camp right now.
yeah. Looking forward to seeing some of these, dual practices or joint practices. I think those are like a couple weeks out, but still, they're in vision. We're back to having football very, very soon, and that's the thing that matters the most.
No doubt. It is very exciting. We're coming to you on the 31st and last day of July here. This is Friday, so all of the NFL news you're hearing will be based on what we're hearing today, Friday. We're just going to go through some training camp news today. That's the plan. A lot of news to cover throughout the league. And then we're going to hit some predictions and trends to look for as you're watching football on Sundays this 2026 NFL season. Very excited to kind of talk about these things, look at where the league is going and evolving. We're always constantly having these sorts of meta questions about where football in general is going, but especially in the NFL, where the highest level of football is played. Oftentimes you see some of these trends seem to come from, high school and college where coaches are more creative with maybe less talent.
True.
And then that stuff leaks into the NFL and you see like what some of those scheme ideas and schematic adjustments look like with the greatest players in the world, and that's always kind of fun. So excited to talk about those things today. But before we do, we got some NFL news, training camp news to get to. First and foremost, let's cover some quarterback battles, shall we, Joe? What are we seeing out in Cleveland?
So it looks like Shador and I believe Deshaun Watson are going through some head-to-head battles. Of course, you still got Dylan Gabriel out there. And so, although it looks like Shador's had some shine, it looks like the job's still open, according to Todd Monken. So we'll see how that plays out. I do want to say, though, I've seen one clip for each of those two dudes, of Shador and Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson didn't look too bad, bro.
What is the best and worst case scenario for the Browns in that situation, in your opinion?
As of who becomes the quarterback, or just for their team as a whole?
Well, like, yeah, like who's the quarterback, but also how they perform. Like, what is the highest possible ceiling? Like, who gives them that, and what would it take? You know what I'm saying? Like, but also what could be the worst?
I think the highest would be they win their division. That would be kind of crazy, or like at least make the playoffs.
You really think they could win their division this year?
No, but like that would be the highest. I don't think they could do any better
Okay.
than that.
I'm not saying that's like saying, well, winning the Super Bowl. Well, yeah, that'd be the highest. But what can actually happen this year, Jody? What's the
They make the
ceiling of that
playoffs. That would
quarterback
I
group?
think they would be a divisional You
For
know,
them to make the
they're a
playoffs,
wild
who's got to
card.
be the quarterback?
Probably Deshaun Watson.
See, I almost think that's the worst thing that could happen.
I do too, but I think at least from the one play I saw from each of them, he looked kind of better
The worst thing that could happen is Deshaun Watson plays just well enough that they now have to consider what they do with this
next
contract.
year.
And like,
Yeah.
yes, because like right now the assumption is next year they can cut him, and there's no, you kind of get off all that the because it was such a long contract with so much guaranteed money. I think next year is the first year where it's like feasible for them to cut him. But if he plays well this year, and like not like man he's awesome. I just mean like oh he was kind of good. He was like mediocre. Where you're then
Yeah.
questioning what do we do with this guy? To me, that's like the worst case scenario. Is Deshaun Watson plays most of the season and he's like mid, and then they have to decide what they want to do. And the Browns it up and convince themselves like that they're going to bring him back next year and not draft a new quarterback or whatever. I think the best thing that could happen for them is if Shador Sanders starts and plays
Yeah.
excellent, because then you actually could be like maybe that guy is your guy of the future. I don't think either one of them are, but when I just go like if you just kind of play out best case, worst case, and this is sort of a lost season, part of me says like you're better off just playing Shador. Because in the best
Yeah.
case
That would make
scenario,
the
your
most sense.
second year quarterback develops under Todd Monken, and you maybe say, hey, you know what, this is the guy we can play for the future. Versus Deshaun Watson, if he played like I just don't know if there's like a level of excellence that exists there anymore, and especially as he approaches his 30s and he is coming off the Achilles and the injuries and the weird stuff that's happened through his career. I think if you're the Browns, you just like to turn the page on that guy. So I just think it's kind of I don't think it's a winning scenario playing
31, bro.
Deshaun Watson. That's what I'm saying.
Dang. Yeah, that's a. Yeah, I guess at this point you just start Shador, regardless. Honestly,
I just kind of think that's the play.
the
That's
only
my
thing that's
opinion.
hurting them
If
is
this
the
was a
like you said, the
team,
amount of bread they threw at this dude, and he's just
if
sitting
this
there
was a
doing nothing.
if this was a team that still had Myles Garrett and thought they could like win some playoff games, then maybe there's a greater argument for Deshaun Watson. But when you're a team that knows it sucks, it's bad, and like you're kind of going into tank mode anyway, I would just see what you have with Shador Sanders. I don't need to see Deshaun Watson, but that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Moving to the Falcons, another team in the quarterback battle. Obviously, we have a competition between a couple of lefties, Tua Tagovailoa and Michael Penix Jr. Um, it appears to be still extremely open, especially given Penix coming off the injury. I don't even know if he's been fully cleared yet.
Huh.
I would guess the likelihood is that maybe Tua starts the season unless Penix is like fully cleared, looks fully healthy, and looks ready to go. I just think if you're the Falcons, you don't want to risk any kind of re-injury there. So maybe you give Tua kind of the first crack at it. I guess we'll see. What are your thoughts on the Falcons situation?
I mean, I've always assumed it'd kind of just be Tua, just because I wouldn't think Michael Penix would be back in time. But at the end of the day, I don't know. It's kind of similar to where you got an older dude and a younger dude. You know what I mean? One you kind of drafted to be the man. The other one you just brought in because you're like, we need a nice little bridge between his time coming back and whatnot. I don't know. I'd
I
say it's
think
probably
ultimately you got to bet on Penix probably starts more games though this year. I would imagine
yeah,
he ends up playing more of the season because the Falcons are going to have to make a choice on his fifth year option after this year. So because year 3 for him, so you want to know what you have there before you have to make that decision. I would say. So to me, even if
yeah.
Tua starts the year, it's more likely we see Penix for more games than Tua this year.
Yeah, I would agree because I was gonna say whenever he gets cleared, who knows? Say after like the first 6 games, it's like he was the man last year. You know what I mean? Until he went down, so it's like why not just let him ride again?
But the interesting part is in some ways their offense almost looked more functional with Kirk Cousins playing last year than Penix. So that's kind of I think that's where there is a question. And Tua at his best has been able to functionally direct and run an offense up and down the field. Very productive one at that in Miami. So I guess we'll see. Another battle we've got going out in Minnesota. It's very similar to the Falcons. We've kind of talked about those parallels before, but Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy. I know you have some thoughts and opinions on this one, especially because you sent me a video just yesterday, I think, of Kyler Murray lighting it up, maybe.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, I've also seen plays in that same from the same day where it didn't look that good. It looked like he threw his dude to the hospital if it was live. So
oof.
I don't know. I think Kyler Murray will ultimately start the season if we're gonna do that, but I don't know, man. I think it's still up in the air regardless. You know what I mean? Like JJ hasn't had a full season as a quarterback in the league, so that's also tough. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't know.
Yeah,
It's kind
it
of
is.
injury prone versus the guy who hasn't really played. You know, has been in the
Yeah.
league for a while but hasn't really completed season either.
Well, and it's funny you sent that video, and I was like, man, with Kyler, when it looks good, it looks great, right?
Yeah,
So, no surprise there. His highs are high, but his lows are low. So, it'll be interesting to see. I've said before on this podcast, that my opinion hasn't changed. I think it's likely we see both of them start at least 4 games, just because I think between level of play and or injuries, they're both just inconsistent. So I would not be surprised to see both of them start at least 4 games each
yeah,
um, through the
I agree.
season. We've had some notable injuries in camp so far. Um, So Panthers receiver Chris Brazel, I believe he's out for the year with an LCL, which is kind of a rare one. You don't see that as often. I believe New Orleans T tackle Brian Breesy looks like he tore the ACL. That sucks.
Oof.
You hate when guys tear stuff in camp and then it's just they're gone for the year. It's just
Mhm.
you get excited, you're getting going, you're just starting that first week of camp, and then you're suddenly your season's over. That's just brutal. There's really nothing worse than that, I think, for a player's mindset to have that kind of injury in that moment. So those are a couple big ones. As we go around the league, Joe, what are some other I don't know, other highlights or news that we're looking at, things we're monitoring?
Looks like we got Philly having high expectations for having the new was it OC? I'm assuming they
Mm-hmm.
got they got some tweaks to their offense. Looks like they're integrating new pieces, probably somewhat, Makai Lemon, being a rookie, the
Yeah.
other dudes they brought in since getting rid of AJ Brown. Of course, people still injured, so they're making sure they're getting healthy, getting right for the beginning of the season. Let's see, what's the last one say? Oh, of course, yeah. It says they're looking to be one of the teams with the biggest storylines heading into the season, which I mean makes perfect sense. Phillies always they'll let you know what they're
Philly is
thinking.
gonna Philly.
They're gonna boo Sirianni whether they're up or they were up for 20 points in a game and now it's a one score game. They're gonna boo that fool. So
Yeah.
they'll let you know what's on their mind. They're happy they got LeBron. I'll tell you that.
Happy they got LeBron. That quickly wears off as Eagles camp starts, and they're already mad at their head coach. Um, yeah, we're going to talk about Sean Mannion, their new OC, later in our trends. But I think this is a big year for Jalen Hurts, man. I really do. I think Howie Roseman is cutthroat that way. That if it doesn't go well for Jalen this year, I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking to draft a quarterback or trade for a big name in the 2026 or in the 2027 offseason and move on from Jalen. So big year for Jalen and big year for the Eagles offense. Moving on to Rams camp. Uh, there's a lot of young players emerging. I've seen some stuff about their incoming rookie receiver from Miami, CJ Daniels, is looking good in camp. Strong receiver, big body over the middle. Obviously the new additions, Trent McDuffie, Myles Garrett, those guys are showing up. And then
Mm-hmm.
by all accounts, Puka just dominating camp right now, which is good news if you're a Rams fan like us, considering the
Got the hair,
offseason he
bro.
had. And he cut the hair, got the therapist. He seems like he's really hit like a zen going into camp, and like all of his interviews have been he's been very reflective. I've been impressed with him, being a young man and having to go through some of the things. When I say go through, he put himself in these situations, so don't. But having to manage the things that he created for himself in these bad situations, and in truth, it feels like, based on everything we've heard recently, it sounds like there's going to be no new contract for him entering 2026. They could negotiate an extension, but they haven't agreed upon one. They haven't come to one, and it seems like maybe in part because of what happened this last offseason. But I tell you what, he stays clean, plays football the way he's played in recent years. I think this offseason, after the 2026-27 season, they'll figure
Here's the
out
bag.
a contract. Yeah. So no new contract for him, but he doesn't seem to be bothered by it, and he seems to be dominating. So also, Stafford, they're managing him, little load management in training camp, and Ty Simpson's getting some reps, and by all accounts, looks good. So
Will say
good
too.
news.
While we were waiting to get started, 37 minutes ago, Sean McVay says Aaron Donald's comeback chances are trending upwards, according to ESPN.
Yeah. He said if there's an arrow, it's trending upwards. But he also mentioned that basically it's not going to happen during training camp. Looks like Aaron,
Yeah, it makes
which would
sense.
make sense. Donald's like,
We'll
yeah,
let
I
him
don't need.
get to the season, let him start running.
Yeah,
He's
yeah, I
older,
don't need
man. He's
training
been off for
camp.
a
I
couple
can
years. No
just,
need to be doing that.
yeah, I can just show up week one. Is
Yeah.
kind of the vibe we're getting right now. So we'll see.
You let him dip his
Um,
toes in preseason for fun, and then it's like we're back.
yeah, yeah. Let's go to Dallas, Jody.
Oh,
What's happening
Dallas.
out
All
in
right,
Dallas?
Dallas. We got they had some physical and competitive practices. Looks like early reports say there's an energized atmosphere under the new coaching staff. We got several defensive players standing out, making some plays, and looks like Dak is got some confidence in the offense heading into the season. I've seen something from ESPN as you were talking to chat before we started, said that they think Dak's going to throw for 5,000. They think there's some big stuff out there in Dallas.
Um, I think the thing that is most pleasing if you're a Cowboys fan is the fact that there's some defensive playmaking happening, because that's something they haven't had in recent years and been a reason why they've struggled to make the playoffs or make any noise when they do make the playoffs. Kind of what you're getting out of Dak in that offense. Schottenheimer, whether as the OC or as the head coach now, is kind of proven to be able to work with Dak and get the best out of him. Those receivers, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, obviously have shown what they can do with Dak if they're all three of them remain healthy through the
Yeah.
year. So you're not really worried about the offense, man. If that defense can pull its weight and be closer to league average instead of god awful this year, the
They
Cowboys
could
might
do a
have a
little something.
chance. Yeah,
Yeah.
realistically, to me, the NFC East of the four divisions in the NFC right now, obviously the NFC South is kind of the just the weird matrix of whatever over there.
Yeah.
But of the other divisions in the NFC, to me, the one that is the most wide open for a team to not only win the division, but then maybe like make an actual run and make some noise in the playoffs is the NFC East.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree.
whether that's you believe in the Cowboys and their defense getting better, you believe in the Eagles and fixing their offensive woes, you believe in the Commanders, David Blau getting Jaden Daniels right and they're fixing the defense a little bit, or the Giants,
The
if you really
Giants.
think Harbaugh is going to turn them around with Jackson Dart in year one. But no matter who you kind of believe in, I think that's a division where the winner could actually do something maybe in the playoffs. And I think the Cowboys have as good a shot as any of those teams to do it. We go to Bucs camp to kind of wrap this up here. No new contract for Baker Mayfield. We heard that interview today. Basically said he felt disrespected and disappointed. Sounds like the offer was 2 years for a little over $100 million, so just a little over $50 million a year. Baker was looking for maybe a little bit more money or longer years. Bucs weren't willing to make that kind of commitment right now. So Baker's going to play out this year and then be a free agent. I mean, if he's awesome, then it's just likely the Bucs will tag him, right? Franchise tag at the end
Yeah.
of the year.
I was
If he's middling, then maybe they just kind of let him walk and he can go find something else. Last year, after 6 weeks, people were ready to call him the MVP of the league. Then there were some injuries, some things happened. He kind of had a tougher finish to the season. Obviously, the Bucs missed the playoffs, so it really
yeah.
depends on what version of Baker you're going to get this year.
I mean, if I don't know, man, 50 mil don't sound too bad for Baker. I don't want I would assume that the tag would be lower than that, honestly, but I don't know. No?
It'll be higher.
It's
The,
higher?
the going rate of quarterbacks now, man, 50 million is like for a mid guy.
That's crazy. That seems too high, bruh. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah. Like right now, if we just look up um, NFL quarterback salaries.
Like Daniel Jones, what did he get? Like 37? Like I wasn't I don't know, man. I feel like 50 sounds like a very solid number.
All right, so the highest value for 26. So Mahomes is getting 63. Dak is at
Okay.
60. Josh Allen 55. Joe Burrow 55. Trevor Lawrence 55. Jordan Love 55. Purdy 53. Lamar 52. Hurts 52. Herbert
See, like
52.
he's not I don't think he's better than a lot of those names you said though. Like I
He's
don't know.
not, he's not, but remember, it's about what the market is. Like teams are always looking at what the market is for the next thing. So like if you're going off right now scale, you're always going to be underpaid, right? So like, are you going to sit there and say that you think Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence at both getting paid 55 makes sense? No,
Joey
Burrow hit
B,
his
yeah.
Joey B hit his first though, and then Lawrence got his after, right? So like that's all
Okay.
it is who's the next guy to be up. So it's the rate for the next guy, right? That's why like does it make sense that Dak Prescott is the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL? Probably not,
I mean,
right?
to
Is he the
Jerry
second best
Jones,
quarter?
yes.
No,
Jerry
it's just
Jones
that
don't care about nothing.
he just recently got the money, right? So like the going rate for the best quarterbacks is 60. That's what it's going to be. Like Dak just set that as the new standard. So if you're saying, well, the top 10 quarterbacks in the league get 60 now, then if you're somewhere in that 10 to 15 range, which is what Baker's going to say he is, then you should be making 55, 52, 53, somewhere in there. And I think he maybe was willing to go 50, but if you're saying, hey, pay me 3 or 4 years, not 2, right? So
Yeah,
I guess we'll
I
see.
guess.
We'll see what we'll see where it goes, right? We'll see where it goes from here. Um, you know, I think I'm wondering what's who are the next group of guys?
I mean, it'd have to be probably like Herbert, maybe. I don't know how long he's been in the league. Probably.
Um, Stafford's at 52. Goff is 53. Like if I'm Baker Mayfield, I'm saying Goff got 53, I'm worth 53. I'm at least as good as Goff,
I don't know.
you know?
I don't think he's has as many years of being good as Goff. This is why he's been trending, bro. He's saying he's undervalued. I don't know, man.
I do think it is a rough look though to be like you call me your franchise quarterback, but you won't give me a deal for longer than 2 years.
Yeah,
Like I can see
that
where he
makes
feels
sense.
disrespected because it's like you think I'm your franchise guy or not. So do you like it's kind of like we won't give you the ring, but like you could like temporarily move in with us, you know? Like we'll
Yeah.
sign a 1-year lease together. But I'm not giving you that ring. I'm not proposing, right? They're not fully committing to him, so I think that's where his problem is. And like
But
if you think
see,
I'm the guy and I'm your franchise quarterback, you got to fully commit. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, that means you don't really think I'm the guy. And all right, I'll play out this year and then I'll go somewhere else.
but
Also at
this
the
guy is
Bucks camp,
also 31 though. That's another. And the way he plays doesn't
yeah,
really allow
31
him to
though.
stay in
Like,
the league too long.
I mean, Matthew Stafford just won an MVP at whatever 38.
Like, he don't run the ball up the field like that to how Baker does.
I just think quarterbacks nowadays they can play well into their late 30s.
Yeah,
Like,
they
I think
probably
it's
could, but
I
I
think
don't
it's
think his
more
style of
likely
play
Baker
compromises.
has I think it's more likely Baker has 7 years left than it is he has like 3 years left.
He's had so many shoulder problems, bro. I'm telling you, I feel like I'm on the side with the business side of this aspect, bro. I don't know.
I would tell you this: if the Rams had not traded for or traded drafted, God, Ty Simpson to be the future post Stafford, I would not have been upset with like saying, "Hey, go sign Baker for 4 or 5 years to be the guy after Stafford." As a Rams
I don't
fan, I
know.
would not have been upset with that. I'm a big Baker fan though, so
I think the Rams are part of the reason why he's in this position he is right now.
yeah,
It didn't
no
look
doubt.
good when he was traveling from the Panthers and whoever else was on that one
Well, yeah,
journey.
dude, he finally
And
got in a
then
competent organization, and all of a sudden he looks good. That tells you how bad the freaking Browns and Panthers are, especially the Panthers, because he had success with the Browns, but especially with the Panthers. That's more of an indictment of that organization than it is of him. Because when he's been with franchises that are competent, he's looked good. So whose fault is that? Him or the franchises?
hey, who knows?
He showed up in LA for 2 days, got coached by Sean McVay for 2 days, and freaking looked like prime Tom Brady at the last 2 minutes of that game. It's unbelievable. He never did anything that looked remotely like that for the Panthers. 2 days with the LA, and he was doing that with Sean McVay. So anyway, Vita Vea also wants money. He wants to get paid, and the Bucs aren't paying him either. So the Bucs are just
So let
kind of
me
like,
out of here.
we're not trying to send all this money out to everybody. So we'll see. Another team that's in a very interesting position this year, and a head coach who feels like it's a make or break year for Todd Bowles. We talked about that before. We're going to transition out of our training camp news into some trends. Golly, that Baker situation, man, you just got me riled up a little bit. So, but we're going to look at some trends for 2026. Joey, I'm going to let you start it off.
All right.
When we say trends and projections, we're thinking what are things we should be looking for in the NFL in 2026? Maybe player types, schematic adjustments, breakout players, coaching generalities. I mean, just anything we should be watching for. So, Joe, we'll let you start here. What are you looking for in 2026?
Oh, and the first thing I'm looking at is I think the Rams specifically, but it could be throughout the league too, where they're gonna have their backfield split, close to 50% of the time between two dudes. So obviously Rams got Kyron and Blake Corum. So like we've seen who's the Falcons. They've switched between Algier and Bijan every now and again. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure the Ravens will probably be somewhere in this camp too, with Derrick Henry getting a little older. You know, I we'll just see more diversity in the backfield as we go forward and
The Cardinals
splitting
said
time
something
50-50.
about sharing the love with Jordan Love
No
or
pun intended.
Jeremiah Love and Tyler Algier there. So poor Tyler Algier, dude. He just goes to places where teams draft like sick running back prospects in the top 5, and then he's like the other guy with that running back.
He's the
But
side chick, bro, unfortunately.
yeah, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But they've recently said that they were going to have a 50-50 share in the backfield, and people were upset about that. Actually, I do think Blake Corum will be the more explosive back in 2026 in the Rams backfield. So everyone's been talking about the two high safety revolution in the NFL, right? The switch from one high as the standard for 20 plus years in the league to now two high being kind of the standard. And some of the most, cutting edge defenses last year, teams that were doing new things, Seattle, Minnesota, Arizona, which was really some Jonathan Gannon stuff. So maybe look for it now in Green Bay this year. Some of those teams started using some three high safety looks. I'm going to say look for, if that rate of three high safety looks was somewhere around 3 to 5% last year, look for that to grow to like 7 to 10% this year, especially on some passing downs,
Yeah.
where teams are going to play in some more three high safety looks out of dime this year. I think it gives you a ton of flexibility, a little bit of mobility, ability to rotate safeties. It starts as three high, it ends as two high somehow, some way. Starts as three high, ends as one high somehow, some way. Right, whatever you want to do there, rotating the safeties post snap. But I think we may start seeing some more three high safety shells pre snap in the league, given the success of some of the two high stuff.
A quick question. It has unfortunately nothing to do with the 3 or 2 high, but is the 1 high, is that like why Troy Polamalu was so good back in the day? Because they just had one safety back there, and that man truly was free and doing whatever he wanted.
Well, so I think when you look at like the evolution of NFL defenses, specifically the greatest evolutions have come, you would argue, either at safety or off ball linebacker. And by that, what I mean is it used to be if you went back to the NFL, let's kick it back to 2008 right now, you would have a box safety and a one high safety, right? And your one high safety, you let him play free all the time, right? So you're talking about like your Troy Polamalu. Yes, right? You could say, hey, this guy can play the middle of the field and cover three. This guy can play the middle of the field and cover one. Oh, we could do some creative stuff. We want to play cover zero and like blitz him or something. Or we could do some stuff where he can play man coverage, or we could do some stuff where it looks like one high, but he's going to drop all the way to the half, and we're going to play like, quarter half or something or whatever, right? So that was always like the prototype one high safety. And then your box safety, the old, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of who was the best example of these box safety style guys. Bob Sanders from the Colts, freaking great box safety, right? These guys were like almost smaller linebackers that you were always going to kind of play with them in the box, and they would be able to like play the run. They're going to play the flat. You would occasionally drop them deep, right? They were just like way more athletic linebackers. Well, that box safety basically became what your modern linebacker has to be now, right? And your safeties, now your safeties have to be multiple. They have to be, guys in the vein of a Troy Polamalu, where they can play one high, they can play the half, they can play man coverage, they can blitz, they can play in the box, right? You want them to be able to do everything so that pre-snap you can disguise. Because what happened was teams realized, oh, that's your box safety, that's your one high. There's no disguise there. We know what you're in. So guys like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady just pick you apart because they know, oh, it's cover three. I know where the holes are in cover three. Here's the concept I want. Boom, boom, boom. We're going to get into a pre-snap, snap the ball, and I already know where I'm going because I know exactly how to pick you apart because I know what you're in, right? And so NFL defenses, as we've evolved, have realized, well, man, if we want to play zone coverage, right, because then you kind of got in the conundrum of like, well, if we play zone, they know exactly where we're going to be and they're going to pick us apart. And if we play man, now he gets to find the matchup he likes, and usually there's going to be one, right? So now it evolved to like, well, now we got to disguise everything. We don't want quarterbacks to know pre-snap that we're going to be in zone or man. And are we going to be in a two high zone or a one high zone? Are we going to be in cover three or quarters or whatever? Well, if you always live in two high shell, you can rotate to cover 3, you can rotate to cover 1, you can play quarters, you can play quarter, half, you can play cover 2, you can play whatever you want out of a 2-high shell. This is why I say going to the 3-high shell is kind of that next evolution. It gets another athlete on the field, you're playing some dime, but
Yeah.
also out of a 3-high shell, you really can disguise and rotate safeties any which way. You can run fire zones out of it, and you can do all kinds of creative stuff. You can blitz a corner and use another safety to cover for that corner who's blitzing. So you can, run some simulated pressures. You can do all kinds of stuff with 3-high safety that allows you to be a little bit more dynamic, especially if you're going to be in a dime kind of athletic package on defense. So that's sort of the long answer of how we evolved to that point.
Uh-huh. So I guess what you're saying kind of is there's more telling from the defensive backs than there is up front. Like
Yeah.
snap.
Yeah. There's safeties are kind of the key generally to what the defense is doing. Now, don't get me wrong, like the D line has evolved too, right? And cornerbacks have evolved as well. Like those guys have evolved as the game has evolved. But I think where we've seen the greatest evolution of changing on defense has been at the safety position, and then at the off-ball linebacker position in terms of like those guys becoming greater athletes and being asked to do more. Corner in the NFL is kind of what it's always been, right? Like those guys are specialty man coverage lockdown guys,
Yeah.
or they're excellent zone defenders with great eyes and being able to play. Like that hasn't changed, even if maybe some of the body types and the way they play changed. But like cornerback is cornerback, and the same thing. The D line, like if you're an edge rusher, you're an edge rusher. Like that's kind of always been the same gig.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas we've asked safeties and off ball linebackers to do way more in an effort to disguise and have greater creativity on defense, which is why you see sort of the evolution of defense through the safety and then sort of
Gotcha.
the off ball linebacker, right? Because if you went back 20 years, Fred Warner is a box safety. He's not a Mike Backer. You know what I mean? If you think about it
Yeah.
that way, that's how
Yeah.
much we've evolved. A guy like
That's kind
that
of
would have
crazy.
been like a run fit box safety and not
Uh-huh.
doing, because you see how athletic he is. He can still play the pass. That's what run fit box safeties used to be. It was like your guy who was a little bit undersized to maybe be a backer, but like thick, could play the run, and then you could occasionally do some stuff where you play him in coverage or drop him deep or whatever.
Yeah.
Fred Warner is that kind of guy at Mike now. Like we asked that kind of athlete to play Mike backer now,
Yeah.
So that's
That
that
is wild.
evolution.
All right. Well, sorry to take us off track, but I was just interested how we got to 3 from
Great,
1 and
great,
2.
great question.
uh,
I enjoyed it.
my next, huh?
I enjoyed it. It was good.
Oh yeah, I learned a lot. I've always thought the front was more telling too. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not the one looking to where I got to throw the ball, but I was always concerned with more people up front than it were everyone outside.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, my next trend, I believe, it's kind of maybe it could make its way over to Josh Allen too, even. But for the Eagles, I think we're gonna see more push, tricks or little things they got slipped up their sleeve coming up this next year. Where we saw some last year, where they would like instead of taking it straight up the middle, they would take it like off the guard or tackle somewhere in that area. I also feel like they could make it where you do that and then you just pitch it out. You know what I mean? You get everyone thinking, oh, they're taking it that way. You pitch it out to
I've
the
seen
running
some of
back, and
that stuff in
he's
college
gone.
football. Yeah. And they pulled that, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago. Remember, like with the handoff outside to Saquon? I do agree with you.
Yeah.
The tush push has been so dominant that we're going to see more tricks and gimmicks off of it this year. Yeah.
Or
Could be
even I
fun.
think we've seen too where they like try to do it and then someone just dumps it over the top to whoever. I don't know. You know? I
Yeah.
think they could. There's a lot of things you could do out of it and win on that short yardage situation.
So this year we've got the return of the fullback. After being nearly extinct 8 years ago, nearly half the league has a fullback on the roster right now in training camp. I think that's going to allow teams to be much more likely this year to get into 20, 21, and even 22 personnel packages to run the football in 2026. We saw a little bit of that last year. We've seen teams invest in those fullbacks in the draft, sort of those hybrid, sort of Joker H tight end fullback positions. And I know you're going to talk about tight ends here in a second, but I think the investment in bigger skill players in general is a trend we're going to see. I think the next couple things you and I are going to talk about is that idea, right? It's about 3 league-wide trends in a row where we're going to talk about bigger, beefier, skill position players to combat what defenses are doing. I talked about the 3 high safety, the 2 high safety stuff, right? Being athletic on defense. How do offenses combat athleticism? With freaking beef and physicality, right? So fullbacks, we are back. Make the fullback great again, dude. It's back. We're going to watch fullbacks throw their freaking whole body through a hole to open it up for the running back. I'm excited to see that again, dude. Fullbacks versus linebackers in the hole. Let's go.
Who's was it Jermaine O'Neal? Is that a basketball player? Did I mess that up? Who's the guy from the Chargers? Lorenzo Neal.
Lorenzo Neal.
There we
Jermaine
go.
O'Neal definitely played for the Pacers.
Pacers. Yep. Yeah. I knew I messed that one up hard.
Yeah. Lorenzo Neal. What a throwback. Shout out.
Let's see. My next trend, kind of what we've seen with the Rams. Obviously, that's where I'm watching football. Fox is rolling them. You know what I mean? I'm watching. They've been running the 13 personnel all through last season. Got the 3 tight ends. I think we're going to see either a lot of the league either develop the 13 personnel or just at least have more tight ends out there on the field in general.
I think you'll see a lot of 12. A lot of 12. 13, like you said, it's hard to replicate. I think some teams will try, but I think a lot of 12. I agree with you there.
Because I think as a whole, at least I talked about it prior to, where Packers were a team that had two tight ends drafted a couple years back. The Bears, they had Cole Kmet brought in Colston Loveland last year. It's definitely a lot easier to have 2 dudes on the field at once that are playing tight end compared to 3 that's kind of like you're kind of guaranteed run in with some slow passes out there, leaking out. But
it's
I think
also
the beef.
The thing that's tough. The thing that's tough about going 13 is it means you only have 1 receiver on the field, and most teams are paying at least 2 receivers like a premium price.
That's
so
true.
To go 13, you're taking a high money and player you've invested in off the field, right?
Yeah.
So that is kind of the tough part about going 13, I think, for a lot of teams, because you're really trading your 3rd best tight end for your 2nd best receiver, and for most teams, that kind of means you're getting worse, with your personnel on the field, right?
Yeah.
Most teams' 2nd best receiver is better than the 3rd best tight end. But from schematic standpoint, if you can recreate some things and you can create some mismatches in small doses, it could be highly effective, even if it kind of seems counterintuitive. So, like you said, tight ends, the investment level has gone up, right? We saw 21 tight ends drafted this last spring in the NFL draft. I believe that was some kind of record. Don't quote me on that, but I thought that was true. So there's a great investment in the position right now, league-wide.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I think we've seen a lot of young ones, too, come in and have production, like Brock Bowers. He was huge his rookie year. You know what I mean? Still balled out the last couple, but, they've had more impact, I think, coming in initially than they have. And maybe that could be a testament to tight end you even. I don't know. But I think they start getting the young dudes out there, too. And it's they start learning something quick.
Tight end you, baby. Tight end you. I'm going to kind of finish off this trend in totality and saying we're going to see bigger slots this year to attack these nickel corners, right? So we have all these sick nickel corners in the league right now. Nicky Manwari, Cooper DeJean, Quentin Lake. Who's the guy the Ravens have? So on and so
Nick
forth. Right?
Hamilton.
Hamilton, yeah. So, but anyway, Kyle Hamilton. But
Kyle
anyway,
Hamilton.
so you've got all these sick nickel corners right now that are like unbelievable. They've changed the way defenses have, worked basically. And so beyond just running the football and getting bigger with personnel, getting different personnel like tight ends and fullbacks on the field to try and either A, force teams to take their Nick Imamori off the field, or B, keep that guy on the field and say, toughen up, bucko, you're going to play the run, which part of the reason those guys have all been so good is because they do play the run, right? So beyond trying to just get bigger with your actual personnel base, I think teams are also going to start attacking those nickel corners by actually getting bigger physically in the slot, right?
Mhm.
We've seen a guy like Drake London who's just killed people from the slot, and he's a big body. Traditionally, he would have been like your old school X receiver, 6'4", 6'5", 215, freaking big body, and you'd put that guy on the outside.
Yeah.
Now, teams are starting to move that guy into the slot and say, we want the big physical guy in the slot who can box people out, especially the guys who are really good in man or zone coverage right now. We're going to put our big body slot in there and start creating greater matchups for ourselves, even against really good players. So instead of just avoiding those players or trying to personnel them out of the game, we can create matchups that are still beneficial for us. So I think you're going to
Yeah.
start seeing the big body slots of the world start showing up a little bit more. And maybe I don't know that the little shifty slot receiver will ever go extinct, but maybe we just see a little bit less of it for a while. It goes dormant.
Huh. Yeah, and I feel like that one's very niche too. You know what I mean? Like, gotta get the super fast guy, very twitchy,
And
and they got to stay healthy. Like, they're cheap and quick out there. They're lots more than dudes tackling them. You know what I mean?
well, and like every team has their kind of version of this. Like if you're the Raiders, you know who that guy is? It's just Brock Bowers. It's like it's your tight end that you play in the slot. If you're um, the Cowboys, like CeeDee Lamb is not small. That dude's a big slot like Drake London. If you're the Rams, that's a mix of like Puka Nakua sometimes. It'll probably be some Terrence Ferguson this year sometimes, right? If
Huh.
you're the Packers, that's sometimes going to be Tucker Kraft for you, right? So
Yeah.
like depending on who you are and what your personnel is, every team sort of has this big bodied slot, whether it's a tight end or a receiver body. But and I just think you're going to see it used even more in 2026 than we've seen in previous years.
And my next trend I believe is gonna come is we're gonna see a increase in snaps taken under the center. So we talked about it earlier, where since 2021 to like 2024, I believe it was trending downwards. It was like 34%, got down to like 28 at 1 year, and over the past couple, the 25, 26, it's gone up a little bit, and so it was around 35% last year at the end of the season. So I think this year we'll see it get up to like 37 if we're lucky. Just play action I think is so valuable, and that's kind of goes back to how we Aaron Rodgers still around even. You know what I mean? Like that was like that era. Him like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady going under, taking the play action. That's kind of how I remember them all playing.
Mm-hmm.
Getting people to shift their eyes on defense. So I think that has making it way back, especially like you said with like smaller dudes filling in those positions. I think they're able to get them off guard one step, and then they can just beat them over the top. So I think the under center is going to be trending upward again this year.
Well, it's funny. I worked with a guy. Shout out to Jake Hales. If he ever listens to this, I don't think he will, but he used to always say about a lot of things, right? This isn't just a football thing, but he used to always say, "What is old is new again." And that
Mm,
was his way of saying basically like everything comes back around, right? Whether it's
yeah,
fashion trends, teaching principles, um, you know, whatever aesthetic shapes, like whatever you want
yeah,
to think about, something that was popular 30 years ago, suddenly it's popular again, right? So
yeah, yeah,
you think about what you said. The NFL, if you were in the 90s, early to mid 2000s, dude, under center was like all we knew. It was like 80% of the game, right? And then all of a sudden, everything flips. And by like 2021 or 2023, it was like 28% of the game was played under center, right? So you're like, oh my gosh, it completely flipped like the other way. Everything was being played out of the gun because all these quarterbacks were like, hey, I want to be able to kind of see everything happening without turning my back. That's like the thing that Joe Burrow's always said. That's the thing that Rodgers has always said. Like, I don't want to have to turn my back to the defense, right? So that I can't see it because I'm doing play action that way or whatever. They want to be able to kind of, I'm sitting in the gun and I can analyze what's happening in front of me. I can see the safeties, right? I know it's 2 high or 1 high or whatever, right? Because in the mid 2000s, we talked about this earlier, Peyton Manning could line up and see it was 1 high. So it didn't matter he was turning his back, right? He knew what it was. Well, then you get into the late 2010s, and it's like safeties are rotating a little bit more. It's harder to like play under center and turn your back, right? So now as we get through the 2020s, it's like all kinds of gun stuff. Like Joe Burrow's like, I want to see defense. I don't ever want to do anything where I'm taking my eyes off the defense, right? But now, once again, what is old is new again. Teams are going under center. The Rams did a lot more last year, one of those teams, the Seahawks, right? Because that play action from under center is just much more effective, especially when you've got these DBs on the field that are supposed to play the run, right? Like a Nicky Manmori, right? You can really actually suck that guy in with, stretch play action like old Peyton Manning used to do and make his money off of, even though you're turning your back to the defense. So, as we say, old is new again.
I was gonna say too. I feel like that goes back to like, even if you see the John Gruden clips of him bringing in the young quarterbacks, like, hey, let me hear your snap count, and then walk up there and just clap. Yeah, I think that kind of ties into this too, where it's like you don't get up there and you're hitting the true freeze, like, you know what I mean, and then you're like, all right,
Yeah.
he'll kill or whatever, and then you do your actual play. Like, I think that kind of ties in.
Yeah. It's funny because our team is a victim of we ready,
Just a clap.
sit. Yeah, we're a clap team. Now, we may not manipulate snap count with the sit. What we do, we have a lot of motions in our offense, so it's ready, sit with the motion. And you do that enough times, it gets kind of monotonous, and you have the motion going. So it's ready, set, but we just don't snap it. We just call freeze. And so there's going to be the motion, and it never gets snapped. But defenses get so used to like, oh, that motion's happening. Of course he's going to snap the ball. And then if they jump, then there's already the built-in like, all right, everybody go deep, backyard football, throw it up. Right? If they don't, we just reset, and then we run our play. So, but anyway, last point here, last trend. So we got a lot of young quarterbacks turned OCs, right? Teams are always looking for the next thing, right? The cutting edge of offensive football, especially. Who's the next guy? All right, well, let's get all these quarterbacks, these backup quarterbacks who had to learn the system, but basically worked as like helpful game planners without actually playing and like secondary coaches their whole career because they weren't players on the field as much as they were backup quarterbacks and sort of helpful in the film room, helpful through the week of practice, all that stuff, right? So let's take guys like David Blau and Sean Mannion and Davis Webb and Zach Robinson and even Kevin O'Connell, who were all just backup quarterbacks in the NFL, turned into disciples of Sean McVay, Ben Johnson, Sean Payton, whoever, those cutting edge NFL coaches who are killing everybody right now. And let's take those guys and take them right out of basically playing. Maybe there's a year of quarterback coaching, essentially, a couple years, and make them the OC, and let's see how it goes, right? And for the most part, this trend over the last 10 to 15 years, it's worked pretty well where those young former QBs turned OCs have lit the league on fire. But I'm going to say not this year. I think David Blau, Sean Mannion, Davis Webb, and Zach Robinson are all going to kind of struggle. I think that what happens is those guys, especially early, before they build their philosophy of offense, they might have the tendency to kind of try and replicate what they know well, right? And NFL defenses have caught some of those things, right? And so if you're just replicating and you're not creating, then NFL defenses know what you're doing and they're going to get you, right? And so I do think that there could be the possibility that those guys struggle just a little bit early on. Now, some of them may be more creative than I'm currently giving them credit for, in which case they may be excellent. But my guess for this year with this trend is that all those young former quarterbacks turned OCs actually struggle. And I don't really love any of the situations any of them are in, truthfully. So that plays a part in my prediction here too, my trend. But I think that's a trend that goes against the trend we've been seeing in recent history.
Where did these dudes all end up? I couldn't tell
David
you.
Blau played for the Lions. So he played under Ben Johnson, was backup quarterback to Jared Goff, right?
So
you would call him a Ben Johnson disciple. Coach quarterbacks last year for the Commanders under their offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, who also, by the way, weirdly, former backup quarterback, but is now the offense coordinator for the Commanders. So he's got the task of hoping that Jayden Daniels can stay healthy, that offensive line can be fairly productive, and that they can get enough out of those receivers to have a productive year in offense. Well, they didn't get rid of him. He was a free agent all summer. They just never signed him, really. Which says a lot, I think. Who knows? Maybe they'll end up with another 49ers receiver. If that 49ers receiver has his way. Sean Mannion is the OC for the Eagles. Served as a quarterback's coach last year in Green Bay. Obviously was a backup quarterback for both Kevin O'Connell and Sean McVay on the Rams, the Vikings, and then coached with LaFleur with the Packers. So he's a Sean McVay tree guy through and through. Davis Webb, who was the offensive coordinator for the Broncos last year, or actually was the quarterback's coach, I should say, I believe, and Joe Lombardi, I think, was their OC. But he got a lot of head coaching buzz this offseason, offensive coordinator buzz. And so Sean Payton, in an effort to keep this kind of young rising star, said, I'm going to give up play calling duties, and you're going to be the offense coordinator, and you're actually going to call the plays. I'm not even going to call the plays. So that's kind of an interesting and different dynamic there. And then Zach Robinson was the OC for the Falcons last year, now the OC for the Buccaneers. So, as I said, for different reasons, like for David Blau, I don't love the talent in Washington. For Sean Mannion, I don't love the dynamics in Philly. For Davis Webb, and also not really the quarterback. For Davis Webb, I don't love that Sean Payton is for the first time ever giving up play calling, and I don't trust that he won't be hanging right over Davis Webb's shoulder at every minute and kind of trying to manipulate the play calls. And then for Zach Robinson, it's Baker in a contract year. It's a whole new receiver room with Mike Evans kind of gone and Chris Godwin entering a different phase of his career. I don't know. I'm just not sold on the situations beyond just what I talked about with these guys having to kind of create versus replicate. Also, the situations and talent and dynamics in all of their scenarios are a little bit tough. So,
that's
hence
true.
why I'm not the biggest fan of any of these guys going into 26.
Yeah, I was. It's funny too. You brought up when you were talking about the Broncos. Like, well, how does that work? You said they had Lombardi as a OC, but you got Sean Payton still making the calls. And now he's forfeiting the calls. Like, that sounds crazy to me too. Ain't no way that's happening.
Yeah. Well, he fired Joe Lombardi at the end of the year, so and promoted Davis Webb and actually gave him the play calling duties. So we'll see how that goes. I think that's it for tonight. Good episode. We were weary. We were tired. We battled through. We fought adversity like it was day 6 of training camp, and it was hot and sweaty out there. I'm proud of us. We forged, some toughness out here, and we're hoping that all other NFL teams are currently doing the same with their coaches and players. We're super excited for the coming 2026 season. But until then, we got our guy.
Ray, taking us out.
Take us out.